Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Rough Motor City Mad Mouth. Glad to be joined by a five-man crew, including myself. Steve Ballesteri had other commitments tonight, so he was unable to join us. However, we want to welcome the new kid on the block, Greg Fuchs. And Greg Fuchs is a sports writer for the South Florida Tribune and does some great work for us. Writes a lot about South Florida sports, particularly the Miami Dolphins. Welcome to the broadcast, Greg.
Thank you, Scott. Glad to be here, guys.
And, of course, regular crew, we got Joe Packhem, the man up in Wisconsin, and a familiar face on the network, Rick Curti. Rick, welcome back.
Thanks, Scott. I hope everyone's doing well.
And I'm going to hand the ball off to Mel Farr, Jr., regular on the broadcast. Welcome back, Mel.
Thank you. Good to be back.
All right, so let's talk about some football. We're going to lead off, since tonight's a baseball playoffs, I have to use the word lead off, okay, with the game that occurred last Thursday night. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cincinnati Bengals, a battle of two number one picks. You had Trevor Lawrence for the Jaguars and Joe Burrow for the Cincinnati Bengals. Tell you what, it was a pretty good football game. That's pretty good ratings on national TV. So, all right, Greg, you're going to start us off. What are your thoughts about the Jaguars and the Bengals?
I was optimistic about how good the Bengals would be this year. And not just because of the three receivers they have who were fantastic, and Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow in his second year. I thought their offense would be very good. But I also thought, and I'm not sure how many people agree to me, their defense would be surprisingly good. And if you look at the stats, I mean, they have done a fairly decent job of shutting down other teams this year. Granted, no defense shuts down anybody anymore. There are no Chicago Bear defenses from 1985 or killer bees from the Dolphin days. Offense always beats defense these days, but the Bengals are a very well-rounded team. They didn't play well in the first half, but they made up for it in the second half.
Well, not only that, Jacksonville Jaguars were driving at the 1 yard line, and the Bengals defense stiffened up and they stopped from there. So Joe Packhem, there you go. We'll take it from there.
Well, the running game for Jacksonville with James Robinson really stepped up. I know he definitely, from a fantasy perspective, was coming back on. A lot of people were not excited about him. Trevor Lawrence was looking good. Like we were saying before, Burrow was easing in. Mixon got used a lot, but then he got hurt. So he's got that low-grade ankle sprain. He'll be out for a couple weeks. So I think that there's a lot of promise there, and you could see a matchup like that for multiple years to come.
Rick?
Yeah, I thought it was a really good game. I thought Cincinnati would kind of dominate that game, but it was fairly close. Jacksonville did a good job. It's not been a good week for Jacksonville, put it that way. That was a heartbreaking loss. And so, but it was a very intriguing game to see the two number one picks with Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. And so, heartbreaking loss for Jacksonville, but it was a really good, strong win for Cincinnati.
And Mel?
Yeah, I think now we're probably seeing some of the effect of Urban Meyer on that ball club. The guys are playing competitive football. They're getting there. I mean, there's a lot to be taken away from that game as far as, how they competed, how they fought all the way to the end. So you can see that Jacksonville they're close. They're getting close to where they can be, a team that, week in and week out, they have an opportunity to win a ball game. So, I mean, that's good to see. For Jacksonville, obviously, good for Urban Meyer. I like Urban with, the things that he's done at Florida and Ohio State and all of his other stops. I mean, all he's done is win. But the NFL is a different ball game. He made the comment, it's like playing Alabama every week, and that's what it's like. It's a tough gig. All those guys, they're getting paid. Those coaches on the other side, they're getting paid big money as well. So he can see that this is a little bit different than what he's been accustomed to. But I think if he hangs in there, if he's able to hang in there, that we'll probably see some good things out of the Jaguars.
Well, the Jaguars have a tough test this weekend. They take on the Tennessee Titans. They've lost 7 of their last 8 games to Tennessee. If they go ahead and lose this game against Tennessee, they're going to find themselves losing 20 in a row, which is the second longest losing streak in NFL history, behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which occurred in 1976-77. I know they face a tough task. That's a losing streak you don't want to have, but they're staring at 20 in a row. And, I wasn't going to get around to it, but let's talk about it briefly for a moment. Obviously, there's a bad look going on in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer not traveling back with his club, staying in Ohio. We all know about the video that went viral there. And obviously, Shad Khan has reprimanded him, and it's a bad look for the Jaguars. There's been a series of incidents, and this is just the latest. So let's go around the horn here. Greg, what are your thoughts about the way this situation has unfolded with Urban Meyer becoming a distraction?
Yeah, I mean, part of it, obviously, the video with that lady dancing. I mean, that is just life today in the social media world, stuff that goes viral. Sometimes you just shake your head at it. How upset should Jacksonville be about it? They shouldn't be crazy about it, but the person who should be upset the most is his wife. That's more of a personal thing than a team thing. Although I'd be real interested what Mel's thoughts are since he's been in the locker room and how players perceive stuff like that.
Well, since he's interested in your thoughts, go ahead, Mel.
I mean, I think it's difficult. So, I mean, you're saying do as I say, not as I do. And, these are grown men you're talking to. These aren't, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids that you're talking to. You might be able to get away with that with them. But I think he's lost a lot of credibility in the locker room, particularly because it came after a loss. He's out partying and doing whatever after a loss. That's one of the reasons why, I don't drink. I want to be in control of all my faculties. So, I mean, if you're preaching certain things, all this is out there. Social media just didn't come about last night, last week. It's been out there. You can't put yourself in those type of situations. And alcohol has a tendency to, help you lower your inhibitions. And then you leave yourself susceptible to things like this happening. If you don't go, you do what you said you're going to do, spend some time with your grandkids, and guess what? I mean, the only thing he should be trending on is TikTok. But because he decided to go to his bar and whatever, his club, his restaurant, and I don't know what he could have been celebrating. Maybe he did feel good about the fact that his team competed. But the fact that he didn't go back on the plane with the players, that says a lot to me. I mean, I don't know how important this job is to him, to be honest with you, because I know a lot of coaches after a loss, the last thing they're thinking about doing, I mean, yeah, you go back see your grandkids and kiss them and whatever, but he's 0-4 right now. He needs to be trying to figure out a way to get a W. That's what he needs to be figuring out.
Yeah, don't give Urban Meyer 10 days. Don't give him a Thursday game and then take 10 days off. So, although he's certainly getting hammered, not like, when we say with social media, but his owner's not too happy with him, Shad Khan. All right, Rick.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the second big black guy for Urban Meyer. When he was at Ohio State, he hired a coach that was involved in assaulting his wife and how he knew about it and did nothing about it. And eventually he left Ohio State. Then he went to Jacksonville. And that was an interesting move to go to the NFL. And this happened. So last couple of scandals that Urban Meyer has been involved in haven't been very good. But I agree. I think he needs to explain to his wife. It's just like he just made a mistake. Shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been with a younger woman, but like it's social media now. He should have known better. And so we'll just see what happens. But I know earlier on when he was with Jacksonville, a lot of the players were not buying into what he was doing. There were some players that really were not feeling it with him there. So hopefully everything will end well. I hope he does really well there. I'm really rooting for him because I'm a huge Urban Meyer fan. I hope he doesn't end up to be another Steve Spurrier or Lou Holtz or even a Nick Saban didn't do well. So I really do hope he can put this behind him and move on. And hopefully Jacksonville can end that streak and get a win. I think as soon as they get that win, I think all this will disappear.
Okay, and Joe, I'll let you close out the subject before we go on to our next football game.
Well, on a joking matter, he did hit all these trending top line headlines with like social media and Facebook and everything crashing. And he's still, anyway, sorry. So, I mean, as a head coach, people are looking to him. Other people in the city are looking to him as a high level of character and integrity. And so, if you're on the team and you spend all this time putting together this game plan and trying to implement your college style offense and putting your quarterback at risk with some of these like read option type stuff, they're going to be looking at him like, okay, well, we lost, but like, what are you going to do to help us? Because every minute that he's spending is helping 53 other people as opposed to like one person that's focusing on their job. So, as a coach, it definitely is a bad example.
Okay. All right, let's go on to the next game here in our neck of the woods. Greg, obviously you're out in Coral Springs. I'm in Deerfield Beach. Either way, it's the area is South Florida, and that's the home of the Miami Dolphins. The Indianapolis Colts walked into Hard Rock Stadium, defeating the Dolphins 27-17. Let me break down particulars for a moment. Carson Wentz did play, and yes, Mel, he was available this time, okay? And Carson Wentz goes 24 for 32, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor certainly helped out a lot, the Wisconsin kid. Wisconsin Badgers could have used him against the Wolverines over the weekend. Sorry, I had to get the Michigan plug in there, but I did since Joe Packhem was looking at me, and the Wolverines hammered the Badgers for the first time at Madison since 2001. But Jonathan Taylor, 16 for 103 yards and a touchdown. On the other side of the coin, Jacoby Brissett, 199 yards, going 20 of 30. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So, all right, Greg, this is our neck of the woods. Some thoughts about the Dolphins and the Colts. Once upon a time, it was a great rivalry when the Baltimore Colts used to take on the Miami Dolphins, but a different age. Go ahead, Greg.
Different age. I mean, the first word that comes to my mind when I think about the game is disappointment. Because I really thought this is the week the Dolphins were going to break out. First of all, it had to be desperate. They're 1-2. Can't afford to fall to 1-3, especially with Tampa on deck for week 5. And on top of that, the Colts were missing 5 starters, including 2 defensive backs, 2 offensive linemen. They're playing at home. It seemed like the deck was just stacked in the Dolphins' favor, and they just came out and laid a colossal egg. I mean, the final score doesn't even indicate how bad that game was. And the finger pointing's going in 2 directions. One, the offensive line for like the 20th year in a row, how come it is so bad? Especially when I see other teams like the Packers, they're missing 2 all-pro offensive linemen. They're starting 2 rookies, and you would never know it. Aaron Rodgers sits back there in the pocket and doesn't get touched, whereas Jacoby Brissett was running for his life the entire game. And to make matters even worse, they leave Gesicki on the bench a lot because they need to bring in a blocking tight end. They leave Gaskin on the bench because they want Malcolm Brown in to help with the pass protection. And they still can't protect them. And they can't run the ball. And probably even the hotter topic this week is the offensive play calling. And part of the problem is nobody knows who to blame. They have 2 offensive coordinators, which never made sense to me. And some people say they have 3 offensive coordinators. Quarterback coach Charlie Fry may actually be calling the plays, but they are just woefully conservative. They don't throw the ball downfield at all, despite the fact their strongest position group is the receiver group. Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, Gesicki, those are good players, even Albert Wilson, and they don't utilize them. And it's not until the game is too late, not only against the Colts, but also the previous week against the Raiders. It's not until the 4th quarter they start throwing the ball downfield, and lo and behold, what happens? They start moving the ball. But it's too late, and they have just been 1-3. They're, in my opinion, and I'm trying to be objective, the biggest disappointment in the NFL so far this season.
And Joe, what do you want to add to that?
Will Fuller broke his finger. I do like Jacoby Brissett, and I still do think he's playing better than Tua would be playing, and I'm going to stand by that. I think it was terrible to see Gaskin on the bench and not getting the work that he, they got to be. I think I had said this on Twitter a couple of weeks ago. The key for them to be winning is to pound the ball with Myles Gaskin and, not have to take a whole bunch of risky throws. And they're not doing that. And I thought that their defense would be better. I mean, I thought that the strength of the Dolphins this year was going to be their defense, and that they were going to not have to have their quarterbacks be in positions where they were going to have to be taking risks, particularly with Tua. So I was pretty disappointed on the Dolphins side. From the Colts side, I was very much surprised. I was surprised at all the points that they put up, that Carson Wentz actually played. Jonathan Taylor finally got started again. Michael Pittman was looking okay. And I don't think that you're going to see more numbers like this from the Colts in the weeks moving on from here, but it was definitely a good win for them.
Right.
Yeah, I think that game was probably 2 of the biggest disappointing teams in the Colts and the Dolphins. I thought both would be pretty good. I thought Wentz would come out there and be rejuvenated, and that he just cannot stay healthy. but when he is healthy, he's still a pretty good quarterback. And the Dolphins are just a complete mess. I don't know if this whole Deshaun Watson, quarterback and is a distraction to them. Tua, like I said, Tua is a great college quarterback, but I don't know if he could do it in the NFL. I'm not really sold on that, but they're just terrible, the Dolphins. And, their head coach, he's like on a hot seat right now. So, I think Doug Peterson will come back and maybe he'll go to Miami. I would be surprised if they do pull the trigger and get Doug Peterson next season, if they're going to get Deshaun Watson as well. So, but right now the Dolphins, they looked really good and promising last year, but this year they have really been a massive disappointment.
Okay, Mel, what's your take on this situation?
I guess I was kind of surprised, but it just goes to show you when you have a healthy running game, it makes it a lot easier on your quarterback, make your quarterback look better. The Dolphins didn't run the football very well. I think they only ran it 16 times the entire game. Indianapolis controlled that game. The time of possession makes the game a little bit, a lot easier on that quarterback. And that's something that they needed to do for Carson Wentz, is take some of that pressure off of him with a good, strong running game. They have a good running back, and they were able to do that. And they were able to come out victorious. So with the Dolphins, a lot of people, they were kind of, for a lot of people, everybody thought the Dolphins were ready now to turn the corner. But I guess it's kind of like golf. This is when you think you got things figured out, and you go out there on that next tee box and you shank one in the woods. That's kind of how this game is. This is when you think you have everything figured out, throws you another curveball. You just got to get back to work and get back to working and try to figure this thing out. Obviously, Miami seems like they have a little hangover or something. All this Deshaun Watson talk. There's a lot of Deshaun Watson talk. Obviously, they're not happy with Tua. That's obvious. So, obviously he's hurt right now, and Jacoby Brissett is playing. I do like Jacoby Brissett, but he needs some help. He's not going to be able to do it by himself. He's not Aaron Rodgers. He's not a Russell Wilson. He's not one of those, even a Dak Prescott. He's not one of those kind of guys that can really, put this team on his back and he can carry him. He needs some help. He needs some help from the running game, and obviously he needs some help from his coaches too. Get a good game plan out there that he can go out there and execute, play good defense, and see what happens.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett is a very efficient quarterback, and we all know that Stephen Ross likes to go after big name splashes, and I think that there's no question that if this continues, that Deshaun Watson's name is going to come up a lot as we approach the November 2nd trade deadline. So if we continue to see more of this, unfortunately, this is another storyline that we're going to continue to track over the next few weeks. But there's no question that Stephen Ross likes big signings. Once upon a time, even lured in Ndamukong Suh from Detroit to Miami, even though that didn't work out very good. He doesn't mind going after the big name. So this is a storyline that unquestionably figures to develop. And I wouldn't be surprised that the Texans bring their price down enough where the Dolphins will bite on it. They'll do it. And I know there'll be other teams that come into play, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Stephen Ross pull the trigger on a Deshaun Watson trade, providing the price comes down. So it'll be something we'll monitor. All right, let's go on to the next football game in Joe Packhem's neck of the woods. And the Pittsburgh Steelers lost by 10, 27-17. Ben Roethlisberger against Aaron Rodgers. I don't even know if the score was even that close. I know that the Steelers, I believe, scored a late touchdown. But, Joe, let's face it, Aaron Rodgers continues to pile up wins. He had that tough opening game loss against New Orleans, but he's happy with his receiving tandem. Go ahead and, since it's in your backyard, elaborate on this football game, Joe.
Well, I think that the love story that everybody wants to be talking about here is Aaron Rodgers and Randall Cobb, who brings in this quarterback as their prerequisite for re-signing. The Packers look good. They didn't even really use Aaron Jones a lot. They were running A.J. Dillon quite a bit, which was pretty surprising to me. They, obviously hitting Devontae Adams, but mostly Randall Cobb. Their defense was looking pretty good. The Steelers are definitely banged up. I think Ben Roethlisberger was playing with a hip injury. Claypool was out. And Deontay Johnson, even though he had a knee injury coming in the week before, he performed well. And Juju just was not, everybody thought that he would be really stepping up every year. I mean, since his rookie year, everybody's like, he's going to be great. He's going to be great. He's such a good prospect. And I don't think I've seen it materialize from him. The main storyline on the Steelers offense is definitely Naji Harris. So Naji Harris is looking great. He is showing some excellent receiving skills. He has a nose for the end zone. He falls forward on his runs. He's getting those extra yards. He's very physical on the field, and he's great for fantasy.
Okay, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, the Packers are going up and the Steelers are going down. I think Roethlisberger, it's time to, hopefully he'll retire. I mean, he's been great. He's going to the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it, but it's time to move on. I hate to say it's about the Steelers. They're probably going to have to rebuild. They're looking old. And I think it's time to do a rebuild with them. Packers looking really good. I honestly thought that the whole Aaron Rodgers situation with all the mess and him not really being happy with the Packers, I thought it'd be a distraction. It looked like in their first game, it looked like he didn't care. But ever since then, he's been playing lights out. Packers look really good. Steelers look old. And I hate to say this about Pittsburgh Steelers fans. And I have a lot of Steelers fans, but I hate to use the word rebuild, but it's time to rebuild and it's time to move on for Roethlisberger. And hopefully he'll retire. And I think he will. I think this will be his last year. I don't see him. I'll be shocked if he goes to another team or another team wants him. It's time to move on.
Okay, Greg, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I didn't see much of the game because I was watching primarily the Rams and the Cardinals. But the two takeaways that I've heard, what he was just referring to, a lot of people feel Ben should have retired in the offseason. He just seems injury prone, slow. The arm isn't what it used to be. And the other problem the Steelers have, their offensive line is not very good. And they just have not been able to run the ball this year or last year. So they need to fix that problem.
Okay, Mel.
Yeah, I totally agree on those two takes. I did watch the game a little bit. You talk about Juju Smith. I mean, Juju Smith benefited from Antonio Brown being there. And I think everybody sees that now, that Juju, he was a product of having Antonio Brown there. That's why he was able to have those types of numbers that he had prior. But being a number one, he's just not a number one. He has some drop passes. Ben, he looks slow. I don't know about rebuild. I think Mike Tomlin's a good coach, but I think he really needs to he needs to really put somebody out there that's going to give their football team the best opportunity to win. And you talk about the offensive line, they lost Villanueva, Pouncey's gone. The offensive line is leaky. They need to get somebody out there probably with a little bit more mobility that can kind of, protect themselves a little bit. Ben doesn't have, he lacks mobility. We all know Ben was not one to work out or anything like that. Probably Mason Rudolph is going to give these guys the best chance to have an opportunity to compete in this division. I mean, unfortunately, they play in a very tough division, and you get, what are they, 1-3 right now? Yeah, that's a big hole to dig yourself out of when you play in the division that they play in with Cleveland and Baltimore. So, they got to get some things figured out. They got to get some things figured out quick. They have to make some tough choices, might have to bruise some people's feelings, hurt some people's feelings. But at the end of the day, this is all about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think Mike Tomlin, maybe he'll go with Ben for another week, and then we'll probably see a quarterback change. I wouldn't go to the young kid Haskins. I mean, I'd let him learn on somebody else's watch. But I mean, I think they might have an opportunity to do something with a different guy behind center.
It's funny. You make an interesting point, Mel. Mike Tomlin, I don't believe, has had a losing season since he's been with the Steelers. No. But let me talk about something you just mentioned, Mel, because you are really on target with this, okay? Don't sleep on the Cincinnati Bengals. This team is really much better than we think, and we're going to talk about them again here in the broadcast. But, they've got a pretty good – they got, Jamar Chase, I think, Joe, right? And then Joe Mixon. And, of course, Joe Burrow's in his second year after rehabbing that injury. Zach Taylor's a good young coach. They stayed with him, showed patience. But don't sleep, folks, on the Cincinnati Bengals. This team is pretty good. We know the Ravens are really good. And, of course, the Cleveland Browns, well, they're pretty good too. So, and obviously the Steelers found out the hard way in the playoffs that the Browns snuck up on them and beat them. They thought, well, we'll get them in the playoffs and beat them. And all of a sudden we know how that turned out. So you're right. The Steelers have had a good run, really, really good run. Hard to believe they've only had 3 coaches in forever. We have Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and Mike Tomlin. You want to talk about an organization based on stability. The Pittsburgh Steelers are no question about it. Ed. So, yeah, I don't know, rebuild, retool. They've got a lot of work to do in Pittsburgh, but you know what? I'm going to go back to what Mel said. that division is much better than most people give it credit for sure. All right, let's go to Rick Curti's neck of the woods. Okay, Carolina Panthers lose to the Dallas Cowboys 36-28. I like what Carolina is doing. Offensive coordinator Joe Brady's doing well. Sam Darnold has gotten a fresh start, and Matt Rule is doing a really nice job. He believes in him. Let's talk about Darnold's numbers for a moment. Okay, then he goes 20 for 39, 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. I wouldn't feel so bad, folks, if you're losing to the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott, by the way, throws for 4 touchdown passes. And if that isn't good enough, Ezekiel Elliott decides, I'll go 20 carries for 143 yards and a touchdown. And you've already gotten your 36 points and 1 point to go along with it. So if you're going to lose Carolina Panthers, at least lose to the Cowboys in Dallas against Dak Prescott. But Rick Curti, are you buying the Panthers Kool-Aid? Obviously, it doesn't seem like you are.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. And I live in Charlotte, and I'll get absolutely massacred. But I'm just trying to be fair, and as it is, and they're not as good as they're advertised. The first 3 games, I mean, they didn't really play anybody. This was their big test, and they did fairly well. But their bread and butter was their defense. Their defense was looking really good. It really got exposed by the Cowboys. So, but they played good. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm not really sold on Darnold yet. Is he a lot better than he was in New York? Well, obviously, yes. But who isn't better when they leave New York, unfortunately? And so we'll see what happens with it. It's too early to tell. I don't think they're a playoff team quite yet. I like things that are happening there. But, their defense did take a big hit because it looked like it was really good. But it did take a hit, and they faced a really good team. And so we'll see what happens later on in the season. But am I buying the Panthers Kool-Aid? Absolutely not.
All right, Greg, what do you think?
Didn't see the game, but on paper, the Panthers obviously have some skilled players, even though McCaffrey's out right now. Hopefully he's back next week. Darnold should be able to make use of those guys. I think it's 4 games, still too soon to tell. Their defense got off to a great start, but as Rick said, their first 3 games were Giants, Jets, and Jaguars. So does that really prove anything? But they hung with the Cowboys, and the Cowboys have been playing very well this year. So you got to give them credit to that. I think they're a team you have to watch out for in the remaining 13 games of the season. I think Panthers fans, they have something to be optimistic about until proven otherwise.
Well, I like your choice of words, Greg. Hung with the Cowboys. So with that said, I'll hand the rock off to Joe Packhem.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that the Giants did beat the Saints, who last year everybody you think of the Saints, you think of a good defense, you think of a rushing team. So they did stop them. Saquon obviously coming back off his injury, wasn't really able to expose the Panthers run defense like Ezekiel Elliott was. I think that Darnold is definitely turning a corner. And I think that having Christian McCaffrey on the field is a huge game changer for them that can really cover a lot of warts on the team, even on the offense and the defense. Because, if the defense is letting up a little bit, they've got a lot of high-powered skill on the offense that they can catch up and stay in games. I mean, if I were to say that hands down Christian McCaffrey was going to be available every single game and playing at Christian McCaffrey levels, yeah, definitely could be a playoff team. But without Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore's been showing up a lot more recently. He's definitely been breaking out this year. So that's good. But I think that their defense is good. And I think that the Giants are not a bad offense, and they're definitely serviceable right now. So I have more hope probably for the Panthers than you, Rick.
All right. Well, I'll let Mel go ahead and give us his 2 cents on the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously they play in a tough conference. There's a lot of good football teams in that conference, let alone there's that division where they have to, they're dealing with Tampa Bay, but there's a lot of good teams in that conference. I mean, they're going to more than likely be fighting for a wild card spot. I mean, so yeah, there's a lot to be optimistic there in Carolina. I mean, it could be like Detroit and be 0-4.
Or the Dolphins.
We have nothing to be optimistic about.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
They the Cowboys look good. I mean, I think if you look at how they won that game, I mean, Dak Prescott only threw for 188 yards. I think he only dropped back. He only threw 22 passes. I mean, that's a great recipe for Dallas. And, you know, their defense is playing lights out. I mean, the defense, those young guys on defense, they're balling. Diggs is a ball hawk. They're getting turnovers. That gives you extra possessions. And if you're able to turn those extra possessions into points, that just makes everything so much easier for everybody. It makes it easier for the quarterback. It makes it easier for the running game. The offensive coordinator now, he looks like a genius. So the Cowboys, you know, they look like they're for real. And obviously they play in a very, very weak division. But for Carolina to play as well as they did without McCaffrey, I think there's a lot to be optimistic about there in Carolina. I don't think you want Darnold to drop back that many times, and he can't turn the ball over. I mean, that's one thing you got to do. He's got to take care of the ball. I mean, they possess the ball more than the Cowboys, but that's probably because the Cowboys had a short field and were able to capitalize on that as well. But I think there's a lot of things for people in Carolina to be excited about, which they haven't been able to be, you know, which they haven't been in a few years now.
Yeah, good points, Mel. When you talk about Dak Prescott only throwing for 188 yards, but yet 4 more touchdowns, you know, I think he'll take those 188-yard days all day long with 4 touchdowns instead of throwing for 400 or 500 yards and being on the losing end of the decision for sure.
That's easy money, man. You know, do the math. I mean, how much did he make per throw? That's easy. He'll take that all day long, as opposed to dropping back 50 times.
Yeah, these guys aren't. None of these guys, maybe Greg, are old enough to realize what Texas Instrument calculator was in grade school, and I had one of mine taken away from me, and it cost me $40 back in the 1970s. I mean, but you know, I guess they figure you had to do the multiplication and subtraction the right way. But we'll leave the Texas Instruments out of it. But leave it to Mr. Packhem to come up with a calculator about talking about easy money. No, folks, this is not a financial lesson. All I can tell you is Dak Prescott got rewarded pretty well for 188 yards, 4 touchdowns, and the beat goes on. All right, so with that said, let's talk about a couple games this week. And if we have time, we'll even address the Tampa Bay New England game as well. I think we're doing pretty well, but we're only going to talk about 2 games so far. And we're going to go back to the Green Bay Packers, who go 3-1 against the Cincinnati Bengals. You guessed it, folks, 3-1. You have the Aaron Rodgers against Joe Burrow. That's a pretty intriguing matchup, isn't it, Joe Packhem? You're nodding your head.
Yeah, that is. I'm definitely impressed with the play of Eric Stokes, the cornerback for the Packers. And I think that with Joe Mixon out with that low-grade sprain, you know, you won't be seeing him next week. You'll be seeing Samar J.P. Ryan. That I think that they're going to be funneling. They're going to be funneling to the passing game, or they're going to take away the rushing game to funnel to the passing game and put them in a bad position. And I think that it might be hard on Joe Burrow, who's not been taking multiple, really large amounts of passing attempts in a week. So I think that that's going to put pressure on the Packers defense. Isn't terrible. I mean, they just played against the Steelers, who have a lot more dynamic receivers, I think, although I've been sleeping on Jamar Chase, and he is very good. So he's very fast. He has a good connection with Joe Burrow. They also have Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins is probably I think he'll be out next week. So Packers, I mean, I would look for a big Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones wasn't really involved last week. You know, when you're looking at the game film from, the week before, you're not going to be seeing a lot of the looks from Jones. You're going to have to be going back further. You might be forgetting about him. So there's definitely some options there. Rodgers is looking very efficient. They need to keep their heads on straight and stay humble. And I think that they'll handily win.
So who do you say that handily? You're going to go Green Bay, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Just want to make sure everybody knows that you're going. Bear in mind, folks, the game though is being played in Cincinnati, not Lambeau. So weather won't be a problem because the Bengals can handle cold weather if it ever comes into play. I don't think it will now, but the game is being played in Cincinnati. With that said, Greg, what are your takes on this one?
My biggest take is 2 things that Joe mentioned. If T. Higgins and Joe Mixon don't play, I mean, that's big. That's a lot of talent sitting on the sideline, especially when he is one of the better running backs in the league. I think this is one of those games where Joe Burrow is going to be like last year, throwing 50 passes, and things usually don't end well when you have to throw the ball 50 times. Never bet against Aaron Rodgers. So I think the Packers will win maybe like 34-20.
Okay, Rick.
I have the Packers in this one. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers and Cobb all day. I'm not really as high on Cincinnati like some people. I think they're a year away. I do like Joe Burrow, but they're not there yet. Maybe in a year or so, I think they'll be good, but not right now. And Aaron Rodgers is just Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks, and he's really got the mojo going on right now. They're playing great, and even if it's in Cincinnati, it doesn't matter. I have the Packers all day, 37-21. It won't even be that close. And I think Burrow's going to have a tough game. So that's the way I see it.
All right, Mel, you're next.
Yeah, this could be a tough game for Green Bay. I mean, Cincinnati's coming off a nice little win. Obviously, Green Bay had a tough game, or I think what they thought would have been a lot tougher game. But I mean, they had against playing against the Steelers. I mean, that's a game that you got to really be up for. You got to bring your A game out there. And this could be a week where, maybe they just kind of, hey, we're the Green Bay Packers and we're going to show up and, we're going to beat these guys. And Cincinnati's playing with a lot of confidence right now. The quarterback's playing with a lot of confidence. But like Greg said, that, it seems like it's one of those games with the injuries that they have where Joe Burrow is going to he's going to be dropping back quite a bit. And that's a recipe for disaster. So I also like the Packers in this game as well.
All right, give me a score.
It's 34-17.
Okay, you're going to go double digits as well. I'm going to make it unanimous. I think Joe Burrow's got a lot of potential. He's going to be a great quarterback in this league forever, as long as he's able to stay healthy. The only way that the Bengals can keep this thing close is that they have an efficient running attack. Joe Burrow cannot get into a shootout with anybody, much less Aaron Rodgers with the weapons that he has as well. So I'm with you guys all the way on this. I actually like the Packers to win 33-21. So take it for whatever it's worth, 33-21. Final game here, and this one could get ugly, and then we will address the Patriots and the Buccaneers since we have a little time on our hands. We got a lot of people want to hear about it. We will get to that, but we won't do that until we talk about the team that beat the Patriots, and that's the Tampa Bay Bucks. They get the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are 1-3 against the Bucks 3-1. Jacoby Brissett used to be Brady's former backup. Not sure what to think of this game, except it could get ugly. These two teams only meet once every 4 years since they're in opposite conference, Sunshine State rivals. Yeah, both of them have 2 Super Bowls in their history. The Dolphins did it in the 70s before the Bucks were even born. And the Bucks, well, what can I tell you? They're looking pretty good. So with that said, Mel, why don't you lead off with this one?
Yeah, I mean, obviously last week was an emotional week for Tom Brady, and he didn't play that well. I think he's looking, I think this is a good game for them. This is a, good kind of little break for him, kind of like, playing, Alabama playing UAB or something like that. Give them an opportunity to build up the confidence again and sit some guys on the sidelines, because obviously they have some injuries with Gronk, give some guys an opportunity to get healthy. But yeah, this game, Tampa Bay is going to win this game. I mean, Brady, they're not going to have a letdown. Brady's on a mission. He doesn't have much time left, and he's out there trying to do things that have never been done before. So I think I see Tampa Bay winning this one easily. I'd say probably 42-24.
Okay, Rick.
Yeah, I'm going with Mel too on this one. I think that Tampa Bay, I think it was just an emotional game for them. I think Brady was nervous, going back where he was at before, and I think it was a distraction. Now that it's out of the way, they can move on from it. I think it's going to be, I have like 45-17. I think, and it won't even be that close. Brady's going to have a big game, and I just see Tampa winning this one easily.
All right, Joe.
34-14 Buccaneers. I think you're going to see a lot from Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. They're going to want to be running the ball. I think Tom Brady could throw 4. I'm projecting him at 4 touchdown passes and 250 yards, and he could possibly sit, he probably never would, but he probably could be in a situation where he could be sitting in the fourth quarter. I think that more woes for the Dolphins. They're definitely not going to be using Gaskin or Brown because nobody's running on the Buccaneers right now. And I think it's problems. It's problems for the Dolphins. and the Buccaneers will stay level-headed, and it's just another day in the office, and they got to get in there, get it done, and move on.
So give me your score again, Phil.
I think I had 34-14.
All right, Greg.
Bucks.
You live in the area.
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, use the right word, Scott. This is going to be an ugly game. Moral victory if the Dolphins actually score a point. They're just going to struggle. They can't run the ball anyway. No one can run against Tampa Bay, so they're going to be trying to pass, and they can't protect the passer. So it is going to be real ugly on offense for the Fins. The only thing that might keep this game close is the Dolphins cannot stop anybody from running the ball. So Fournette and Jones could get a lot of carries, eat up some of the clock. I'll go 34 to somehow the Dolphins figure out a way to score 10 points, 34-10.
And all right, Mel, I think you already talked about it, right? So why don't you give us an additional take on this one? No, everybody else.
You look at, you look at last week, I think we're going to talk about that. And, all the things that Tom Brady was going through, the interviews and all that kind of stuff, how they're making it, Brady versus Belichick, all the emotions. I think this is going to be a welcome break for him where the focus is not on him, where the focus is actually on the team, and he can just go out there, doesn't feel like he has to live up to anything or do anything like that. I mean, he's human. We might look at him differently, that like he's not human, like he's superhuman, but he's human. And he got caught up in the emotion the previous week, and it kind of got the best of him, almost cost him the football game. They got very lucky. If it wasn't for that little doink at the end, you're talking about a different outcome. Mac Jones did a great job of giving them an opportunity. Now, the only thing is they might have scored that field goal a little bit too early. There might have been a little bit too much time left on the clock, and Brady could have still brought him back because I think there was about 35 or 30 some odd seconds left at that particular time. And he could have brought him back and went down there and kicked the field goal, and they could have won it anyway. But again, they did not play well. He did not play well. He overshot a lot of wide open folks. You can see, obviously, he was really amped up, and, he was throwing the ball wildly. And I think this is a welcome break for him where he can just get back and focus on football, focus on the team, and go out there and really show everybody what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are all about.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to say about the game is I believe that the Buccaneers are going to win 41-10. It's going to be very one-sided for sure. And there's no question there was a lot of adrenaline going on in Foxborough for the game against Tampa. And obviously New England, I know it's one of the highest rated Sunday night football games in ages. And I wonder why the buildup certainly turned out, and then having a close score to begin with. And let alone the fact that Mac Jones had a pretty good game and New England stayed with him the whole game. So, you're talking about Tom Brady and the guy who ultimately has become a successor with Mac Jones. So there's no question that I don't think Brady's going to take a break, but the Miami Dolphins are definitely not in the class of the New England Patriots. I think things are going to be tough for the Dolphins. Sorry to say that, Dolphin fans, but the reality of the situation is if Jacoby Brissett struggles, who's to say they won't bring in their third string corner? Was it Reed Stinnett, I believe? Is he the third string guy down there? Yeah. I've heard people really have cat calls for him until they ultimately make a decision on what they're going to do with Deshaun Watson. So I'll go again 41-10. I could be wrong, but Tampa right now certainly wants to make a decisive statement here that, we had a tough game and we definitely are the class of the NFC for sure. So all right, with that said, all right, Greg, why don't you give me your overall thoughts about the Tampa New England game? And I'm going to go around the horn with everybody as well before we wrap up the show.
The word that comes to mind is surprised. I really thought Tampa was just going to steamroll. I thought Brady would throw for like 5 touchdowns and the Patriots would have trouble scoring. So got to give the Patriots credit. I mean, they hung in there. Mac Jones looked really good. If I was Bill Belichick, I would have gone, 4th and 3 instead of kicking that 56-yard field goal? I think I would have tried to get the first down and get closer. unless your kicker's Justin Tucker.
Okay, Joe?
Well, I definitely would have been sad if we hadn't talked about this because I was looking at that game pretty close as a big Brady Belichick fan myself growing up. I remember last week I was saying that Belichick really knows Brady and he's going to be putting him through the ringer. And I heard Chris Collinsworth saying, like, I think he's throwing a different defense out there every single play on Brady. And I was wondering to myself, like, you know, what if the Bucs like ran like a hurry up offense where they were able to dictate? Maybe they could have taken back some of the momentum. But it's pretty interesting to throw a different defense against Tom Brady so that he's always on his toes, always thinking. I mean, he's the guy that's seen everything. He's played more snaps than any other quarterback. So that I thought that was pretty interesting that definitely the free agent acquisitions that the Patriots made were showing up. And I think that there's a certain familiarity that Belichick had with Brady that helped the Patriots perform better than any other team would against Brady, because nobody else is going to, who could implement a playbook in like a week where they're running all these different defenses except for like Belichick. Throw that in. Everybody else has, you know, some kind of standard type stuff that they're running, and Brady eats up film and he can find out all the things that all these people do and then take advantage of it. You know, it was raining in that game. So I think that attributed a lot to some of those wild passes that Mel was talking about. He was definitely amped up, but, you know, you could see his fingers squeezing on that ball as he was trying to throw it in the rain. And he was definitely missing Gronkowski. There were a lot of throws that he was making to Cameron Brate where it's like, just if he had that one more step or if he was 3 inches bigger, that would have been different. It would have been a big difference. So I thought it lived up to the hype, and if only we could have, you know, storylines like that in every game.
Okay, Rick.
Well, it was a really good game. I thought Tampa would go out there and kind of like make a statement, but you got to give it to Belichick. He had a great game plan. You know, the rain didn't help him at all. I think most of Brady was just pressing too much. I think he was nervous. I think it was a very emotional moment. I think it was a distraction. I think he was just wants to get this over with. You know, this win would have him beat every single team in the NFL. So, and history was there. He was close to Drew Brees' record. Just a lot of emotion going on for him. But I think Gronkowski not being there, I think that was the big elephant in the room for them. If they had Gronkowski, I think it would have been pretty one-sided by the Buccaneers. But not having them there, I think it made it very close. And Tampa Bay got lucky in this game. They really did. It could have gone in a different direction. Belichick had a great game plan, but unfortunately, it just wasn't enough.
All right, Mel.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. I mean, if anybody knew Tom Brady, it was going to be Belichick, and obviously he knew him. He held him to no touchdowns. They had 1 touchdown and kicked 4 field goals. Anytime you kicking 4 field goals, you're generally not going to come out on the winning end of that deal. But fortunately, they have a good defense, and their defense only held them to 17 points, and they were able to come out of there with a victory. But you know, it looked tough on Tom. I mean, you could see he looked flustered. But at the same time, there were some plays there to be made that he missed. There were some overthrows early in the game where, you know, you could see he was really amped up and he was just throwing that ball. And, you know, he's played in bad weather. We're not going to blame bad weather. I mean, he plays in New England. Every week is bad weather in New England. They practice in bad weather. They practice outside. So I'm not going to say the weather affected him. I just think that, you know, hey, you know, you know, Super Bowls are big games. But, you know, this might have been up there with it emotionally for him. And he just, you know, and then obviously he was up against the master. And he had, you know, Bill still had a few tricks up his sleeve, and he played every single one of them and made it very difficult for Tampa Bay defensively. So, you know, obviously, you know, we look forward to seeing better things from Tampa Bay this week. But, you know, I think it was an emotional game for him. I think he's glad to have that behind him. Doesn't have to focus on that anymore. Don't have to deal with that anymore, and just get back to playing football.
You know, what I really like is I like it when my panel makes my job a lot easier, like each and every one of you has done tonight. So I don't have a whole lot more to add to this one. I know the familiarity factor certainly played into this football game with Belichick knowing Brady. and the Gronkowski factor. So I'm not going to add any more to this. I think each and every one of you guys made my job easier on this. In fact, you guys have been absolutely fantastic throughout the broadcast. I'm going to tell you, you guys, to me, I'm proud of every one of you. With that said, okay, Greg Fuchs, let everybody know how they can get a hold of you.
Well, I write for the South Florida Tribune, so just www.southfloridatribune.com. And I'm also on Facebook, and my Twitter handle is just Gregory Fuchs at Gregory Fuchs, I believe.
Okay, Joe, go ahead.
You can find me on Twitter at FF_spotlight. And you can find my fantasy football analytics articles on ffastronauts.com.
And I got to hand it to you, Joe. You do an incredible job interacting with the followers that we have. But that said, we're going to transition over to Rick Curti, who does an incredible job making sure the word for our entire platform gets out to them. Rick, go ahead and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you and what you're all about.
You can go to my website at www.charlottebats.com. Our email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB and Charlotte Bats Baseball. And I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball and Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti. You can contact me on any of those social media sites, and I'll get back to you. I'm on there every day, so I'll get back to you as quickly as possible.
Go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, I'm on all the social media sites at Mel Farr Jr., whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of those. You can catch me at Mel Farr Jr. And then you can see what we have going on here in Atlanta and also even in Detroit for the youth at melfar.org.
Okay, and I'll wrap it up here by saying that you can, our website is www.southfloridatribune.com. That's the South Florida Tribune. We're an online publication with a broadcasting side. I'm also working on actually securing the rights of the Motor City Tribune as well, so we can open up that area a little bit as well. Stay tuned for updates as well. And then you'll also be able to find these shows, a visual, on our South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We encourage every one of you to please subscribe. We have a lot of good shows, not only in the past, I'm working on a lot of other great ideas as well. If you want to reach me on Twitter, do so at Tribune South. It's at Tribune South. And of course, like, you can reach us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com as well. So we have numerous different ways that we can go ahead and get the message out. Candy Ebling does a phenomenal job with the website. She works very tirelessly doing it. So whether it's emailing me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com, the Twitter account at Tribune South. Also, we have a South Florida Tribune Facebook page as well. So don't think I've left anything out there between Twitter. Well, you can find me on LinkedIn, Scott Morganroth there as well. So guys, every one of you did an awesome job tonight. I'm very proud of the work that you put in tonight. And we're going to find out what our report card is when everybody has a chance to watch football over the weekend. So Rick Curti, we always enjoy your contribution to the show. So no show would be complete unless you give the COVID message. You do it better than anybody.
Well, thanks, Scott. I've got my vaccine shot. My mom's got her vaccine shot. She actually got her booster. It's really important. Wear a mask, social distance, get vaccinated. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. It'll make your life a whole lot better, a whole lot easier if you're just vaccinated, where you don't have to worry about getting COVID or not getting COVID. Wear your mask as much as possible. And, I'm out and about, but at the same time, I'm not around like tons and tons and tons and tons of people. Just use some common sense, be safe. And most importantly, be safe around your friends and family. That's the important thing, because this thing spreads like wildfire. And right now things are, here in North Carolina, they're starting to go down, but it can go back up very easily. So just keep doing your social distancing, get vaccinated, wear a mask.
Very good, Rick. And I just want to reiterate one other point. Okay. You can follow these broadcasts. Go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can find them there. And I encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And I'll tell you what, if you can't listen to it, or you can also find these broadcasts as well on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts as well. So you can hear them as well as watch them. So on behalf of Greg Fuchs, Joe Packhem, Rick Curti, Mel Farr Jr., my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth, thanking you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. And we will look forward to being on next week I don't know whether Steve Ballesteri will be on. Hopefully he is, but I got news for you. For this week, I'm very proud of the crew and the panel that we had tonight. Well done, guys. I'm really proud of all you guys. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Scott. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.